Welcome to another episode of Hot Mess Espresso. You asked and I delivered. It's not my husband, but it is actually the next best thing. So we have my favorite podcast guest probably ever in the history of any future episodes. No, she didn't force me to say this. Please welcome my sister.
Hi.
Hi. So, we've known each other since the day you were born. I'm very glad that they didn't return you, even though apparently there's video evidence that I asked them pretty please to just take you back.
You're welcome.
Okay, so you wear a lot of hats. You're a mom, a business owner, a wife, and obviously my A1 day one. Which do you find to have the most challenges?
You. I'm just kidding. I feel like they all have their own challenges in their own ways. And I think it just depends on what part of my life is taking the most challenging part,
Which one's the most chaotic?
Yeah, which one's the most chaotic depending on what's happening.
I'm so glad that I'm not a major front runner anymore. There are contenders. But so now that you're a mom, looking back, do you think your mental health is better, worse, or the same?
Worse.
Yeah, that makes sense. So without giving details, obviously, for the privacy of your offspring, you've been one for a few years, just for context.
Yep.
In your opinion, is postpartum anxiety, because also for context, you suffered from it.
Sure do.
Yeah, so is postpartum anxiety, in your opinion, a long-term thing, or does it ease up over time?
So it's definitely long-term. So I have had anxiety my whole life, but it was never anything that wasn't just manageable on my own, that different things that I just kind of learned over the years, no big deal. And then when I had my kid, we definitely, me and my husband went into it knowing that that was a possibility. Postpartum is a real thing and signs to look out for. And I was very upfront with my husband that he had to kind of pull the trigger on that stuff. Let me know if he felt like I was having any sort of postpartum issues, because then I was going to go straight to my doctor. And I actually did think that I was doing pretty good and I was doing fine. They really only talk about postpartum depression and I wasn't sad, so it was fine, right? Everything was fine. And, but no, I had postpartum anxiety. I still have postpartum anxiety years later. It is not fun. There have been things as a mom that have happened that have caused me to even go into panic attacks and that stuff. And so working through therapy and whatnot, I've gotten a lot of skills to help me prevent them if I feel them coming on, or how to get out of them quickly when they do happen. But yeah, it definitely upped my anxiety and has not let it come back down yet.
Yeah, because I will say there's a little bit of a stigma that postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, postpartum rage, which is something I just found out about in the last year, is only the first year. And you're saying that sometimes sets up camp and doesn't live, it's got squatters' rights, basically.
Yep, it doesn't leave. You don't, hit the point where you go back to work and it goes away. That doesn't happen. And maybe for some people it does, and they're super lucky. But in my experience, it has stuck around for years.
Yeah, because to be completely honest, I didn't know that you had any kind of anxiety until you had the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I love this child more than life. I would just refer to him as the kid for several reasons. But I don't want people to be like, oh my gosh, you referred to him as the kid. No, I'm not that child free. I'm child free by choice, but I would take a bullet for this child.
She's the best aunt in the world.
I really am racking up the EE title. I'm loving it. It. So do you feel like there's a difference between postpartum anxiety or just heightened mom anxiety, where you're just very aware of all the things that could go wrong and stuff like that? So do you feel like there's definitely a difference between people that would say, oh, it's not postpartum anxiety, it's just, you're a mom, you're going to be anxious about things?
There is a little bit of a difference, I do feel, because naturally you have a kid, you're going to start worrying, right? You're going to start worrying about different things, and that's completely normal. You're going to look at life a lot differently, and that's all completely normal, and that's fine. And then there is the extra where, I literally did not want to leave my house. I didn't feel comfortable going anywhere. I was totally fine. I would have been totally content if I literally just was with my kid 24/7 and we just didn't leave the house. That literally was just what I wanted. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want him to leave the house. It's way worse than just now you're looking around the park and seeing the adults and making sure that they have a child with them and they're not just a weird adult standing there. It goes a lot deeper than that. And I also feel like another thing to look at is that a lot of these feelings are extremely normal and valid. And just because you're having them doesn't mean you're crazy and losing your mind. You're just having them and you need to figure out a way to sort through them or get a good therapist that can help you work through them and let you know that it is normal to have these thoughts and different ways to, if they are affecting your life, kind of cope with them.
Yeah, definitely. I guess that kind of answers my next question, because obviously we don't want to make this all about your postpartum anxiety, but do you honestly feel like it affects all aspects of your life now, even, involving just you, without your kid, or do you feel it's more along the lines of just parenting?
No, it's definitely snowballed into other parts of my life that have made me have a lot of anxiety. Even with just myself, even just being by myself, going somewhere by myself, I don't do crowds anymore, but I also feel like that has a little bit to do with the world that we live in now too, where, a lot of things happen in crowds that aren't the safest. And so it's do I just avoid crowds or do I continue to live my life? And already having the heightened postpartum anxiety and all of that has definitely made my personal anxiety snowball way beyond just the normal parenting anxieties or anything like that and into my normal life. And that's why I did get help, because it was affecting me being able to live my life how, one, I wanted to, and two, how it could benefit me as a person.
Right. No, that makes complete and total sense, especially because I feel like all people talk about is postpartum depression. I think we're finally talking more about postpartum anxiety, and we only know a blip of postpartum rage, which I didn't know was a thing.
It makes sense.
It makes total sense. Well, your hormones are all literal wackadoodle for God knows how long. Mm-hmm. And especially if you have multiple kids, it never settles. And you only have one, but it just, when your hormones change for whatever reason, case in point, you have pinstripe hair as a kid and then your hormones change and it's curly for the rest. Sometimes they just have really annoying squatters' rights. So it makes complete sense.
Yeah, and if you are a mom who's breastfeeding, we did formula and I pumped. So it was very easy for my husband to feed our kid overnight. And if you're exclusively breastfeeding, that's not possible. So then you start to resent your spouse because you're you get to sleep, So I definitely feel like that can be a big part of postpartum rage.
Yeah, and just being angry and overstimulated. And,
yeah.
Especially if you have a colicky baby.
Oh, yeah.
Yours got the family flaw of gastro issues. So
yeah, I'm sure it did.
There were just times where he would just scream and scream and scream and scream, and there were times I cried with him.
But, and there's nothing wrong with putting them in their crib, walking away for a few minutes. They're nice and safe, getting a few minutes to yourself, and then going back in.
Yeah, sometimes for everybody's safety, just walking away and taking a big breath and screaming into a pillow is much safer than the alternative.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you talked about that, because I think we need to talk about that more. Mm-hmm. But kind of changing slightly, we're still in the parenting thing.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone definitely sees the ways they wouldn't parent, and, I'll never do that again. I guess kind of putting you in the hot seat, do you find that you parent differently or similarly, or both?
To how I thought I would parent?
Yeah.
Literally the only difference that I said that I would never do and did was bed share. And that was honestly survival at that point. My husband and I both work. And so our kid would go right back to bed. If, we'd put them to bed in their bed, they would always fall asleep in their bed. And then in the middle of the night, if they woke up, they would come right into our bed and they'd go back to bed. So it was kind of like a no-brainer. Like, we all get to sleep, and we did it very safely, and we made sure we had things in place to bed share as safe as possible. But yeah, no, we definitely did that, and we for sure said we would never do that. But everything else that we kind of talked about before kids, we have stuck to. The nice thing is that my husband and I both have a very strong self. We know ourselves very well, and we know each other very well, and so we were able to kind of figure out what we wanted to do before we started, knowing that we would be making changes along the way. But we both definitely knew how we wanted to raise our kid.
No, that's important to know that you can go into things being like, I'll never, or being open to change.
Mm-hmm.
You see those memes all the time, like, oh, my kid will never, and it's like, just lick the rock. If you just stop screaming, you can lick the rock. I don't care.
Right.
That kind of thing.
And I also think the amount of kids you have changes that as well. We have one kid. Things definitely, it's easier to manage one kid than I believe multiple kids. And so I think that's why we maybe were able to stick to our plan a little bit more than some people can. But it's okay to change the plan on the go, for sure.
You definitely have to, because everything you think about how your kid's gonna end up is not at all. Not at all. Well, I mean, let's be honest. Your husband was a first-time parent. You have been babysitting and, like, basically, being the third parent with everyone, so...
The joke was that my kid was my fourth kid, and then my husband was, like, the first-time parent. And so the first month was hilarious to watch him be that first-time parent where I'm, like, over here, like, no, we're just going to do it this way. I've already done that a bajillion times.
Right. Like, it's definitely interesting to see, even with, like, burping, like, the people that are just gently, like, and I'm just over here, like, between babysitting and stuff, and I wasn't wailing on his back, but I was just giving him, like, a good hearty, of course, this kid came out a straight up just linebacker, so he could handle it.
I had a C-section, and as they took him out of me, they literally told me to sign him up for preschool.
Like
that was what they told me. So yeah, he was a big baby.
He was a large boy. So now he's just tall and mouthy. It's fine. We love his sass. I love it most of the time. I feel like I'm matching wits with a tiny me, and I feel like both of our parents are getting a kick out of it because karma is just coming back around a little bit.
Hey, I always say let them do this now because they'll need it as an adult.
Oh, absolutely. He's very sure of himself.
You need your personality. You need your strength. And if you're building those skills now, like, you're going to need them later in life.
Yeah. One way or the other.
Yep.
But no, he's a very sure little kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, to kind of circle back to the fact that you're a business owner, do you find that your work-mom balance has been a struggle, or do you feel like you got it?
Since becoming a business owner, I feel like I can have that balance a lot more. I have a really great business partner that we both just went into it being like our kids come first no matter what. And so when I need to step back, they step up and vice versa. So it really does make it nice to have that balance now.
Right.
I didn't always have that balance before I owned my own business. In fact, it was an extremely bad balance that I had, which was a good reason that kind of pushed me to open my own business, so that I could have that balance. And I'm very thankful that I do have a better balance now.
Right. You and me both, because I feel like you actually have the ability to have boundaries, but you also have like a village.
Yes, I do. I could not do what I do without my village. That is for sure.
Yeah, it definitely makes all the difference. So, time for you to get off the hot seat. I guess I'll put myself on it, I suppose.
I didn't even feel like it was too hot.
Oh, that's good. So, you've heard about borderline forever. Well, not forever, but at least...
Since you got diagnosed.
Yeah, in the last, 6 years. So, what was one of the things, looking back, you think I struggled with the most over time and then I'll give you the second part after because,
Okay, yeah. I don't do good with multitasking and multiple questions and remembering what the last one was. So your biggest struggle is you are always a people pleaser. Mm-hmm. And as someone who is the exact opposite, it was a struggle for me not to be like, what are you doing?
I'd be like, you're so mean, and you're like, you're way too nice, bitch.
Right? Yeah, no. My favorite button is the block button is the biggest joke.
Tell them to fuck off and go away. But, like, no.
Or the text messages, just don't respond. But I have to. No, you don't.
Yeah. Or anytime I'd mention, like, an ex, you'd be like, didn't you block them? I'm like, I did. Why did you unblock them? I got bored. Well, get unbored. She was very much the loud and obnoxious voice of reason. But what do you think I struggle with the most now?
Now I think it's breaking being a people pleaser. So you still are and you struggle with that, but I feel like I've beat you down enough where I feel like you are starting to be like, okay, I'm going to put this boundary up. Okay, it's okay if this person isn't happy with me because what do they give me to benefit my life?
Yeah, I think my bullshit tolerance is a lot lower and shorter lived.
Yeah.
So that's good at least.
Yep. Progress.
So when it comes to recovery, do you think support can make or break it?
So I want to say this two different ways. I think you can make it on your own. So if you do not have a support system and you do want to make these changes, you can do it on your own. It's going to be a lot harder and it's going to take all the strength you have, but it is possible. But yeah, no, having a support system, putting yourself in the correct environments that are going to help you thrive instead of bring you down.
Right.
Being able to pick out those relationships that it doesn't matter how long you've known that person or think that they care for you. You really, going into recovery, start to realize who is actually there to support you in any form that you need and who you just need to say bye to.
Yeah, no, I've definitely learned that with a few friends where it just was either putting things to a complete halt or I was going backwards and they're still mad about it. And it took a while for me to not be personally offended when they would post things like for the real ones that have stuck around. And it's like, you didn't do anything to help yourself. And I, for my own mental sanity, had to peace out. Like,
Yep.
I'm not sorry. So obviously you think that being around more stable people definitely makes or breaks recovery.
Oh yeah. If you're trying to do something different, it's the most successful people. They surround themselves with people who are hungry and supportive, not people who are trying to be in competition with them.
Yeah, that's true. I've definitely heard that you surround yourself with people that are more successful because it gives you it gives you a jumping off point.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would agree with what you're saying just because obviously you get a lot healthier when you're around stable people and suddenly all of that learned environment behavior is under one of those like FBI lights and you're very aware of all of the things you did in, fight or flight that are incredibly toxic and you have to fix it because you're not around people that bring that out in you.
Yep.
Because I remember talking to my therapist when I, first got with Will and I was like, why am I worse? How am I worse right now? And they were like, because you're not in survival mode anymore.
You feel safe.
Yeah, you feel safe and you're suddenly aware of the level of crazy and how much you need to tone it down. And I'm still toning it down for anybody wondering. It's been 3 years and I still kind of like go a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs at times.
She still has me here mediating for her.
Pretty much. She'll take my side for like a half a second and then after about 5 minutes she's like, okay, but like XYZ. And it's annoying, but it's needed.
It's not a side thing. I just look at the whole picture and then I tell you guys what I think.
Yeah. Usually, somehow, he's never in the wrong.
That's just how you see it. But I always have your back.
I know you do. I know you do.
Look, I will tell you when you're wrong. I'll tell anyone when they're wrong, in my opinion, with a situation.
No, I 1,000% agree. It's just fun to give you shit because 9 times out of 10, you're like, you're right, but you're also overreacting, and you need to chill the fuck out, and you need to like make these like accommodations and understand XYZ. So, you know, he's not wrong, you're not wrong, but you're both not right. Kind of thing.
Yep.
Being a sibling of somebody with BPD, and obviously you're probably, besides, you know, a couple other people, know the most about the level that it could get, it does get, all of that. So what is it at times just completely exhausting to be one of the main supports, and obviously as close as we are, like, was it exhausting as a sibling dealing with all of the stuff? I would just say pre-Will, because I feel like the second I met Will, like, I made a lot of leaps and bounds on things. I'd made leaps and bounds before.
The recklessness stopped. It definitely can be exhausting. There are ebbs and flows. You know, when they're good, it's not as exhausting as when the manic starts, and then you're like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and when you say manic, you just mean the, like,
reckless behavior.
Yeah, because just for context, it's not bipolar, and manic tends to be with bipolar. It's mostly just so that
for context.
Yeah,
I don't actually know verbiage with this stuff. I'm just along for the ride, and I just try and be as supportive as I can.
Yeah, I'll explain something to her, and it is just straight deer in the headlights, and she goes, okay, what does that mean?
Yep.
So that's just why I put the context in there. But so I guess the next question is, what's like what do you think is my most improved characteristic or symptom?
Besides you not being as reckless, would definitely be you're starting to create boundaries with people and not care so much about what people think, and not have people in your life just because you feel like you can't get rid of them.
Yeah. You get these deep emotional bonds with people that you have no business, and most people would just kick them to the curb. But when you have borderline or even CPTSD, you're like, but there's a lot of buts to it.
Yes.
But yeah, the reckless behavior was, yikes. Not a good time. Some of them, it wasn't that bad. Other ones, I don't know how I don't have a toe tag.
I feel like it prepared me well to be a mom of a teenager, though. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Parented your sister, now parenting the kid's gonna be cake.
Right?
He's not gonna get away with anything because he's gonna think he's slick, and we're just gonna be like, no, your aunt did that like at 24. So no, you're not gonna do that.
Yep.
I guess to lighten the mood, let's do a couple.
Okay.
A fun or funny memory from birth to now. So let's do like a childhood and then an adult one.
Okay. I feel like my favorite one when we were kids was, I'm obviously younger than my sister, and so we grew up in the country, and so when I would want to go out to play, so I was like the active tomboy, and my sister was like the reader, right? So she didn't want to spend all day outside, where like that's all I wanted to do. And so my parents used to always force her to go outside with me and just basically like make sure I didn't die. And
or wander off into the woods.
Yeah. And so we had a pool, and so she had to be on the pool deck, but she never wanted to be wet. And so
it's a sensory thing, for context. It's a sensory thing.
And so she would always be like, I'm gonna tan. And so she would like close her eyes and be tanning on the deck, and I would literally fill up like 3 or 4 like scuba goggles full of water.
The freaking scuba goggles.
And I would bring them over and I would dump them on her. Like stealth mode. She wouldn't even feel me coming, hear me coming. And I would dump them all on her and she'd get so mad.
Because not only would you get me wet, you get my hair wet. That was a huge no-no.
Not the hair.
Ugh. I had thick hair. It was a nightmare to wash and dry. Like, absolutely awful.
Mm-hmm.
So what about adults? And I always say adults, I mean over the age of 21.
Yeah. Well, for sure, dumping pies in your face was really fun.
So the theme is terrorizing me.
Well, you know.
Actually,
I guess it's payback, right?
Yeah, I guess. Pretty much. I did volunteer for the
whipped cream
pies.
This was all your idea was whipped cream pies. Except we were not prepared for what happens when you wash the stuff. Just throw it out.
Yeah, literally. If you ever do whipped cream pies for any kind of like TikTok rank run or anything to do with that, wear stuff that you never want to see again because we washed that stuff twice and it still smelled like straight up puke.
Yeah.
And I wore the wrong pair of leggings, so I am down a pair of Fabletics and I am pissed.
Yep. Yeah, we tried to. I mean, I sprinkled everything possible to get the smells out, the stain. Like, we threw everything out. Yeah. It was gross. It was so gross.
It was, yeah. Never again.
Never say never.
I still can't really look at whipped cream right now because I swear to God, no. Nope. No. Never again. Okay. It's time for rapid fire.
I feel like you need like bong and like sounds and fire flames after you say that.
I should get on that.
Gotta have sound effects.
We definitely do need sound effects for that. That would be hilarious. But so we're gonna go with 5 or 6.
Okay.
You have to think of the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh boy. Okay.
Pineapple's not the answer to any of them. Okay.
Watermelon.
Okay. So, leggings or sweatpants?
Oh, legging.
Pigs or goats?
Pigs.
Yeah, I know that was
my
stupid.
favorite animal.
Brittany or Christina?
Christina.
Colored lights or white lights for Christmas?
White.
Disney or Universal?
Universal.
Okay, and last one. Late night snacking or Facebook stalking?
Late night snacking. I don't give a crap about people.
I know. One of her famous lines of all time was, I can't even remember how we got on it, but she just goes, "I have blocked people from high school just because they annoyed me once."
True.
So,
yep.
It's fine. So yeah, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
This is so obnoxiously formal.
I know.
Thanks for being the best.
You're welcome.
Oh my God. All right, guys. We will see you next week. Until then, stay hot and stay messy.